Maguire and De Gea. I wouldn't even let him on the bus after the match. I get a taxi back to Manchester.
This fella Ronaldo is a cod.
Oh, yes! Hello, Ted,
I'm 2 minutes in the ground, you asked me to step back in. Yeah. Don't annoy me. Tell your mother on you.
Hello and welcome to Following the Floodlights. I'm Conor Hosford.
And I'm Daniel Pitcher.
Coming up, a full special on Dublin 15 footballer Mick Daly. From being a product of Manchester City's youth setup to setting up his own business in the area, we have an in-depth chat about the highs and lows and coping with COVID-19.
If you want to get in contact with the show, you can tweet us at ftfpodire or email ftfpod@gmail.com. This show is also available via a podcast on Spotify, Acast and YouTube. So, as Conor said, we did sit down with Mick Daly this week, and usually when we do these features, they tend to go on for about 20 minutes or so for the show. But such was the interesting story of Mick's career, we didn't really want to stop him in his tracks, so we bring you a full special this week, and there is lots in this chat, Conor.
Yeah, loads. There's plenty. Start going right back to the start now. He starts with talking about his gym, and then turns into his career, and then look, it just rolls from there.
And I mean, he also talks a lot about the differences in terms of youth football these days compared to what it was when he was growing up, in terms of, you look at some of the SSE Electricity League youth setups, they have teams from right to under 13s now, right all the way up. That didn't really exist when he was growing up at all. So, we also asked for his take on whether or not he thinks that young Irish footballers should be going over to the UK in this day and age, which is a very, very interesting part of the conversation, Conor.
Yeah. So, it's basically it's a matter of his opinion now, saying, look, he probably thinks that players should stay at home and not rush to go over to England. Now, obviously, times were different when he was playing. You really didn't have a choice. If you wanted to make it, you had to go to England.
Yeah.
But yeah, look. So let's get right down to the interview with Mick. He starts first by running his gym, Anatomic Fitness, and the challenges during COVID-19.
Well, they did change every week. Well, they seem to change every couple of weeks anyway. But we opened up back in May. I think it was May. No, thank God May was... it was so sunny in May, and we were able to do... It started outdoors. You were allowed training pods of 4 outdoor. So we used to ship all the equipment out the back of the gym and have groups of 4. So it got us back up and running slowly, and then it went to groups of 6 and 15. You could have 6 doing group personal training and then 15 in a certain pod. So then we were able to open up a small bit and bring our classes back. And then the next phase, we were actually allowed indoors. We ended up just every couple of weeks, I have a members page on Facebook that I'd write into the members, listen guys, I got to be flexible, you got to be flexible with me. We're back down to 4, we're up to 6, or we're up to 15 now. And people worked with me, we were all flexible and appreciated being able to open. When you're shut for 10 weeks and you're in front of a computer trying to do Zoom, I wouldn't be the most computer literate. That I just really appreciated. I didn't care. Obviously revenue was way down. Revenue's way down for everyone, but I actually didn't care. It was just to get back in for my own head, get people training, open the business up, open the doors again. So now we were kind of close enough to fully functioning, and then obviously we went to level 3. So now our classes are outdoors. We put a huge investment into the gym. So now we have 8 separate pods within the gym that have all their own equipment, all their own dumbbells, kettlebells, bars, benches, everything. So we can cater for 8 people while our classes remain outdoors. Now it's hard to do. It's hard to watch my members outdoors, in that I'm open 7 years, and an awful lot of the people who are with me 7 years do the classes. They mightn't be able to afford to do the groups, and you're looking at them out in the rain or out in hail, rain, snow now, the way it has been lately. So it is hard to see, but there's nothing we can do at the minute. We just have to adapt.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose then, like you touched on it, 7 months down the line, I think an amazing conversation took place on the internet the other day, marking World Mental Health Day, and I suppose given that an awful lot of people were kept behind closed doors for a number of months, that people's mental health was now back in the picture for the first time probably in a long time. There's been a specific focus on mental health, and you touched on it, trying to get here back open, probably for your head and for the sake of your own members as well.
Yeah, and that'd be, I can see it firsthand. I'm speaking to people every day. I can see the impact it has, even when it looked like we were going to phase 4. I know there was a threat of phase 5 there last week, or level 4. When it looked like we were going to level 4 or 5 last week, people were saying, listen, even if it's only 1-to-1, I don't mind, I'll come in. Like, obviously the cost has to go up if it's 1-to-1 rather than 6-to-1. But they said, I just need it for my own head. I just need to get out of the house. If it means we have to go out into the rain, I don't care. I just need to do something. So many people are working from home, told to work from home, told not, if at all possible, don't go into work, don't be gathering, don't be meeting friends, don't be going over to family. If you have elderly parents, maybe don't be visiting them. So like, this has been an outlet. And as much as an outlet is for them, it's been a huge outlet for me as well. To come in and be able to work and be able to mingle. Like, I have family and friends, girlfriend at home, all work from home, and I can see they're struggling at home, whereas this is kind of my social life. I come in and I chat away with people. You're meeting different people all the time, like, while keeping a distance, obviously. But yeah, it is tough, and you're seeing suicides going up. You're seeing even a fella at Castleknock Bridge there supposedly the other day, seeing no way out. It's tough, and it's something that needs to be spoken about at government level. I know it was referenced in a couple of different speeches lately, but it's something that's been really highlighted over the last 7 months, because it's not just a small population or a small portion of the population struggling with it. With everyone working from home, you can start to see everyone is starting to deteriorate slightly. So hopefully it'll be more highlighted.
And you say when the government is telling people not to do this, don't do that, do you feel like you're in a kind of a privileged, lucky place to be able to facilitate that kind of that freedom when you're told not to do anything else, to come into the gym, you're able to facilitate for people who might be struggling at home with mental health, to facilitate that for them and to change their outlook on life in these tough, challenging times?
Yeah, I feel in a privileged position that I can even be here and be open and welcome them in. But even still, when you come in, it's still not like what it was here, you know. Like, we used to have 20, 30 people in the class there. Now everyone has to wait outside before coming into their time slot. They have to walk in, and like, you don't want to be mean or strict around, but you have to be. You have to put things in place that they follow. So they have to come in, they have to sanitize their hands, they have to come into their own specific pod. The second they enter their pod, they're not allowed mingle or enter a different pod, or, you know, obviously there's exceptions if they need to run out to the toilet, run out, but in general, it's not the same as what it was, you know. We used to, it sounds disgusting now, but I used to high five everyone after every session, you know. Everyone be pouring sweat, and I'd high five them, or I'd pat them on the back, well done, you know.
It's something we never really thought about.
No, never thought of it. Like, and then another group would come in, you wouldn't have cleaned your hands. Like, I know that probably sounds disgusting now, but at the time that was like, people would be coming up if they missed you to make sure they high fived you, you know. So like, even in times where we're allowed open, it still is challenging. So you just try and make the most of it and hope it doesn't last too long, and stay open as much as we can and provide a support for people as much as we can, but it's still not what it was, like, you know.
And then one of the things we were mentioning kind of off mic to you was that, you know, obviously you're playing with St. Mochtas at the moment. You're doing your football there, and it's been quite a successful season, winning the Intermediate Cup for the first time in the club's history. That must have been difficult as well, because you were, as a club and as a player, really flying through the season before everything had to grind to a complete halt. During that time, did you, like, because I think I remember talking to you before that we didn't actually think that the season would return, that you thought that it'd be null and void, and all of those kind of conversations were happening. So kind of, relief then as well that you were able to get back out on a pitch? And
yeah, definitely. And credit where credit's due to the Leinster Senior League. Like every other one dropped. Munster Senior League, Connacht, Ulster, they all went null and void, or they were awarded points per game or whatever. We played all our games. We came second in the league. Unfortunately, it looked like we were on course to win the league and the Intermediate Cup, but in their history, it's Malahite's first time in their history win the league. It's our first time in our history winning the Intermediate Cup. And what a travesty that would have been if we didn't get to do it. Mm-hmm. Because when we actually played our games, say, through the summer, the cases were really low. The risk was really minimal. So fair play to the Leinster Senior League. I'm not sure if it was the FAI as well, but I suppose it was the FAI Intermediate Cup for allowing the competition to go ahead and to finalise the competition. Mm. It was weird at the time, but again, you just really appreciate getting back in and seeing the lads again and having a bit of crack. And you were so used to restricting your movements or only hanging around with a certain amount of people to go in there and see 15, 20 of your mates. Like, you know, it'd take your head away from me, you know. Mm. But then looking at this year, I just can't see how this year goes ahead. We have to go back to level 2 before we're allowed to play a game. And how long are you going to be in level 2 before there's a spike and you're back to level 3? Level 2, the pubs are allowed open in Dublin, so it's a strange one now. Like we've an awful lot of good players have come up to us since last year. We had a great team last year. We've signed an awful lot of very good footballers, but it's just weird now. When can we actually play?
Because, like, I mean, it's just so, but like. You look back through all of the previous, you know, Intermediate Cup finals. They've been in a great position to be played at the Aviva Stadium. Obviously, that couldn't happen. I'm not sure it would have happened anyway because of the transfer to UEFA, because the Euros were supposed to be happening. Yeah. So I think it would have been called from the Aviva anyway. But in Tallaght Stadium, where at the time you were able to get, okay, I think they decided last minute that, okay, there wasn't going to be any crowds for it, that they weren't going to be able to bring in a crowd. But Tallaght Stadium, even though it's obviously much smaller than the Aviva, you would have still been able to get a small little crowd in, family maybe, to see a lift. That must have been incredibly difficult to do away from family, because you're committing so much of your time and effort, not just to work, but to going down on a minging wet night and you know, training your ass off. And you know, the people who sometimes you have to sacrifice for that aren't able to see then the finished product.
Yeah, from a player's point of view, certainly. But then you have to look at it from a club's point of view. You've a 70-something-year-old club. You've lads who've worked there for 50 years. Like, it's more devastating for them. Like, I'm in the club 2 years, and I love playing, and I've played at a higher level and loved playing there. But you're looking, there's lads there in the club 50-something years. It was more devastating for them not being there, you know. Like, I think if you look at the 3 ball boys we were allowed to bring, I think the average age was 70-something. They didn't chase one ball for the whole game. That they were able to maybe get 3 lads in to watch. But, like, it'd be more them, you know. I love playing personally, and I know an awful lot of boys, we love playing. You'd want your family and all there, but men who've dedicated their whole lives to the club, even if it was only 20 or 50 lads in a 10,000 seat, like, you would have loved them to be there, you know. They were the ones I felt for most. And the strange thing about it was, and where maybe the restrictions didn't make sense at the time, they were able to go to a pub in an indoor setting and watch a screen. Like, where they're way more at risk than an outdoor stadium spread out, like, you know. So it didn't make sense at the time, but I wouldn't be feeling sorry for myself, or it'd be feeling sorry the lads like that couldn't really embrace and enjoy it. So we just have to win it next year.
Yeah, like, I suppose, like you were saying, like, all your league games were through the summer, where we had minimal cases. Like, you're outdoors, sun was splitting the stones.
Yeah.
Like, you had, like, we were up in Porterstown Road the odd time during the summer. Like, you like, between kids training on the pitches, matches going on the Astro and stuff, and then your own match going ahead. Like, the place was buzzing.
Yeah,
like, and to go from that, all of that, to a snap decision that everything's gone behind closed doors. First of all, everything was like trainings, matches, everything was gone behind closed doors, and then a couple of weeks later, everything was gone completely.
Yeah, you see, I as I said, like before, I'm watching the cases constantly, and I'm trying to adapt or be ahead of it here, or be ready here for what might come down the road in 2 weeks' time, or this, that, and the other. And reading all the data throughout Europe, it was like there was no cases of transmission through playing. An awful lot of the amateur cases that there was clusters were from going to pubs afterwards. So going with your team, and I know a team in our league, I won't name names, went and celebrated, and 10 of them got it. You know, but that's from being in a pub setting. So like I'd love to be able to go to a pub. I do understand indoor settings, restricting people being around each other. But outdoors playing a game of football, or outdoors watching, or listen, if you want to cancel us, I'm 31 going 32. I've played 25 years of a career. Cancel me, but don't cancel the 6-year-old running around, or the 10-year-old. Or I have a member in here who was playing with St. Kevin's and was kind of on the bench getting on, and the parents had a chat like with the coach and said, you know what, we'll drop him down to the second team. We just want him to play. But now the St. Kevin's first team is classed as elite, and the second team isn't. Yeah. So that one decision they made 2 weeks before this means the kid can't play at all, and they made the decision so he could play. I don't know. I understand it, and I know there's worry, and listen, we want to get this under control, but I think he can restrict. And lads in the Leinster League will be giving out me saying it. I know there is 18-year-olds in as well, but you can restrict lads like me, but let the kids play. That would be my take on it, you know.
Yeah, like, and you say that because kids are in school, you're able to fit 30 kids into a classroom.
Yeah.
But you can't put a couple of them out onto a pitch, which is a strange one. Like, and then you say again, in terms of elite and non-elite, like, what's your thoughts on that? Like, what is, like, in your opinion? Because we can't wrap our heads around it.
The difference between an elite 15-year-old and a non-elite 15-year-old.
Yeah.
Speaking of schools, like, you can have a mate of ours said it before. I made a point on Twitter there to a couple of the local TDs. He says, like, you could have 2 15-year-olds or 2 12-year-olds in a classroom together during the week, and then out on the weekend, one's class as elite and can play a match, and the other's not class as elite and can't play a match. Like, it doesn't make sense, and it doesn't sit well with me. Like, what's your opinion on all that?
Yeah, listen, I'm no expert, but you hear the argument constantly about school. School should be a priority. Firstly, in my opinion, like, I don't have kids. We have to make sacrifices. And we have to prioritize. School is a priority. So you can use that argument with constantly, but they're sitting beside each other in school. We have to make is a priority a junior CGA match. Really, is it that much of a priority? We have to restrict certain things. What's elite and what's not. Like, if I can understand where they're coming from, and that elite, really, they wanted to just be professional. Not that I agree with it. I wish I could play. I wish everyone could play. Elite, I think they thought was going to be professional, but then allowing the associations to classify what was elite is where the problem came in, because the GAA classified all adults, no matter what it was. It could be there was a video went viral of a fella in Cork in wellies playing in goals. He wasn't on the team, but the goalkeeper didn't show up. So a fella who was on the sideline, and then you're looking at him and saying that just came from allowing the associations to class what was elite. I wish everything could play, don't get me wrong, and I think the transmission rate outside in the fresh air is extremely low, that they should be allowed to play. But I don't like the comparison to a school, because a school is so essential. I have 2 sisters who are SNAs. One of them is in second class, so you're talking 9-10-year-olds, and she was saying half the class didn't know their ABCs after coming back, missing school for 5 months. Like that's essential. Like, the kids need to learn, like, you know. I do think they should be allowed outdoors and play their games, and I don't see much of a difference in them out there training anyway and playing 5-a-side against each other anyway, to actually going and playing another team. It might be a case where you just try regionalise it and say, right, Dublin teams aren't allowed to leave Dublin, so at least we're keeping cases within. But as I'm no expert on it, I'm just kind of giving my opinion, you know. I would like to see kids playing. Should a junior C game where lads go out on the piss afterwards happen? If you were to restrict something, I suppose that is one thing you could restrict, you know.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, all I suppose we can do is just hope that these cases come down and we can all get back to doing what we love to do. And you mentioned as well, obviously, that you were a player for a very, very long time. You know, the youth system in Manchester City. You played in Australia. You had a good career in the League of Ireland as well. I want to try and sort of bring you back and sort of reflect on that, and maybe start with Manchester City, because there's an awful lot of debate at the moment on whether or not the youth systems at Premier League clubs are serving its purpose anymore for young kids here who are looking to have a professional career, and that's why we're seeing the developments of the likes of the underage national leagues and so on. So if we can take you back to when you were starting there, I suppose what was the system like, and what sort of brought you over there?
Yeah, it's a very interesting one in that now if I had a kid, I'd probably want them to stay at home. But at the time, we didn't have the structures in place in Ireland. So I think it was Rue Doctor brought it into the FAI, and I know there was a bit of resistance. I think it's under 19s, under 17s, under 15s. Yeah. Is it down to under 13s now? Yeah, that's a great setup, because I remember I was playing with Cherry Orchard, saying you could play against Bows. Being from Castleknock, I'd be a Bows fan, or would have went to watch Bows. But there was no link to that Bows team to the first team. There was very little chance of you getting from that team to the Bows senior team. There was as much chance of you getting to that as if you're in the Cherry Orchard team. It was Bows by name, but not really any link between the junior setup and the senior. Whereas now there is, and now there's elite players coming together. So you're constantly training against the best players. Whereas when I was playing, that wasn't the case. Or you weren't playing outside Dublin. You weren't being able to go down and play against Cork or play against Sligo, So now I just think the systems in Ireland are so much better than what they were. Now as I said, I'm 31, so it was 15 years ago I went over. Things should have developed, and they have. But then they've probably gone backwards in England for Irish lads and trying to get a chance. There's so much money in the game. There's so much investment. It's so hard to break in. Yeah. It is very, when at the Man City team I was at, I was there for 3 years, and out of the two of the years they were in the FA Youth Cup final, whereas an awful lot of lads broke through. But since then they've probably had way better players than aren't breaking through. We had Mika Richards, Michael Johnson, Daniel Sturridge, Kelvin Atu, Ched Evans. We had an awful lot who broke through. Joe Hart was there, Cash Schmeichel was there, Nathan Manua, who came through and broke through, whereas now they've one of the best number 10s in England, and he can't break through. That wasn't the case then. Now they're signing from all over the world. So would you really want your young fella to go over? Although it's very hard to say it to him. It's his dream to go over. If my mum and dad tried to stop me, I'd have swam to England at the time, There was no stopping me. So I don't know, it's a tough one. It's just trying to find, if you do have a kid who's so adamant on going over, trying to find the right academy and the right place which will treat him well and he actually has a chance,
Yeah, there's an awful lot of sort of I suppose time management and commitment, I suppose, from a any parents probably listening will go, well, I'd have to go over, to Brighton with him, or to, any other club, and just have to keep going on these trials. It is a massive commitment to try and help a dream. For you, what was it your sort of ambition at the time to make it to the top, or?
Oh yeah, it was the only ambition. And again, going back to say everyone has different family scenarios. I had 2 sick kids at home, so for me I was going by myself. There was nobody coming over with me, but listen, it makes you grow up. I moved over at 16. Man City was the only club I went on trial with. Immediately they offered me a contract. I signed. So there was I know lads, and we all know, have been to 20 clubs, but that's probably an issue. If you're at 20 clubs and nobody's offering you a contract, maybe it's time to just stay at home and develop at home, But I just went over there, signed there, and all of a sudden at 16, you're living away from home in the middle of nowhere. I was living outside Manchester by myself with a family. You just grow up. It forces you to grow up. Now, they looked after me very well. I've zero complaints, but it's a hard environment. It's no fairy tale. It's psychologically, mentally, physically, it's hard, like, you know. You go over there and you work and you work and you work and you work. Now, I wasn't talented. I was never the best player. I was always the hardest worker. But even mentally, I'd be mentally strong, but mentally over there was a challenge, like, you know. You're going over and you're thinking you're a good player here. You go over there and you're brutal. Like, you're back to being last picked when there's 5 sides being picked. You're back to things, people not even trying to put you down, but all of a sudden your ego is down here, is on the ground, to build yourself back up. So it's if you can handle it, it's a great life experience, but it's not for everyone either, like, you know.
I suppose it doesn't help when you're playing against the likes of the names you just dropped with Micah Richards, especially now, because he went on to have a illustrious career.
Yeah,
Man City,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, and the best of a lot of them was Michael Johnson by a mile. He was outstanding. But then mental health with Michael.
Yeah.
He had an injury. He was the best footballer I've ever seen. He was a magnificent footballer. He was brilliant. I remember he was out for a couple of years, hadn't played in years, and Liverpool still came in and bid 8 million for him. Sven-Goran Eriksson said he was going to captain England. Like, this fella was. And he was centre mid. So, like, I'm trying to mark him. You couldn't get the ball off him. Honestly, in years, I'd say I got the ball off him less than 5 times, playing one for 3 years. He was unbelievable. So it was great to learn off, like, you know, but it doesn't make you feel good about yourself, like, as I lose the ball for the 20th time, like, you know.
And then, yeah, when you say the difficulty of being over there, like, you look at a lot of young players now, the football bit isn't the hardest thing for young kids over there. They talk about the difficult bit being living in digs, like, away from family, with a different family.
Yeah.
Like, was that difficult for you, or?
Yeah, no, I had a second mammy over there. Like, I was living with a woman who was very good to me, you know. I was the first person she took in, and I lived by myself with her for with her family. But she was the woman of the house. She'd cook, she'd clean my room, she'd iron my clothes. Like, this woman was a saint, you know. To this day, I'd still ring her and talk to her. If I go over, I'll always go into her. But I was lucky in that she kind of helped me out, like, you know. Maybe I was lucky as well that I was the first. She wasn't worn down by 10 other lads, like, you know, who were wrecking her head constantly. But she was very good to me. And then eventually another Irish player, Don McDermott, moved in with me. So listen, it wasn't home. It was tough, because you come back and I'd be very conscious of all I cared about was football. I mean, I lived over there for 3 years. I barely made a friend. You know, I didn't care. I've plenty of friends at home. Like, I just went over there to play. Like, I'd go train, I'd come home, I'd go to bed because I didn't want to be tired for the next day. And I'd stay in bed all day to get up and go train. I did that for 3 years. Like, I'd never go out on a night out. I'd say I went out in less than 3 or 4 nights out in 3 years over there. Didn't go to any of the Christmas parties. Didn't do anything. I didn't drink. Like, I didn't want to get to my age now and say, oh, I was good enough, but I did this. Like, I can sit here and say I wasn't good enough. And I'm proud of that, like, you know. But not everyone can do that. Not everyone has that self-discipline. And an awful lot are more talented than me, so they don't need the self-discipline, you know. It came naturally to them. But for me, there was nothing natural. I just had to work and work and work. And then when I got brought in and told, listen, we're releasing you, I was like, oh, I was fine with it, you know. Obviously, you're devastated, but I was like, I don't regret it. Like, I tried my best, I just wasn't able, like, you know.
And how long was that from when you signed for the club? They told you that you were being released. Did you go? You came straight. You came home, and then how long was it then before you went to Australia?
So I was over there. I initially went over on a 2-year deal, and I got another deal over there that was into my 3rd year. I was playing under a manager called Kenny Jackett. He has gone on to manage Wolves. He managed Millwall. Kenny was brilliant. And I was doing really well in the reserves. And I got called up to the Ireland under-19s team. And, like, I mean, I was flying at the time. It was probably the best football I played. Called up to the Ireland 19s team, came home, played, went back, and Kenny was given the Millwall job. He was gone. So like at that stage, like we'd called out maybe 8 first team players into our reserves, but I was one of the 3 reserve team players playing. So like he just filled me with confidence, you know. And then I went back, I think it was just after Halloween, I think he got it. And went back and a new fella came in and there could be no first team players and I still couldn't get into the 11. Or he'd play me right back, he'd play me out of position. I was playing sitting centre mid. So whenever I did play, I was then playing out of position. So kind of for me, the writing was on the wall that I was going to leave. So then I came home, signed for Dundalk, played for Dundalk for a year. We came 3rd in the league, and then I had an awful lot of offers after that. I won Player of the Year up in Dundalk and signed for Drogheda. To be like, I had a great time at Drogheda. It was a great club, but it was a bad decision at the time. They offered me an awful lot of money to play part-time, and they were only training Westminstown at the time. So stupidly I followed money rather than the other offers I had. Like I spoke with Michael O'Neill about going up to Rovers, and that was the year they qualified for Europe. It's typical. I got relegated at Drogheda and they qualified for Europe. So like what happened at Drogheda was honestly it was scandalous money that I was supposed to be on and never got it, that I'd signed for, and then a couple of weeks before the season started they went bust or were going bust, had to get rid of, so the likes of Conor Kenna left, a good few of our senior players had left. So I ended up staying. I took a reduced contract, ended up staying, and we got relegated. So to be honest, I just got pissed off of football at that stage. This was 2009, 2010. Ireland was going through the worst recession ever. So I up and left and went to Australia, and there was no such thing as a recession in Australia. Like, so I was playing the league below the A League in Australia in Sydney. I played there for 2 years, which was a brilliant experience.
Because I can remember during your time at Drogheda, like you got there was that FAI Cup final that I still to this day sit and think, Jesus Christ, Drogheda were completely robbed. In the last minute, and I can remember talking to you after the full time whistle, and you were completely devastated. You know, a refereeing mistake cost you, you know, qualification for Europe for the next season. I know obviously things didn't work out with Drogheda and they got relegated in the end. But like that was all like it did seem like things were going to go, you know, really strong, because I think you didn't just get to a League Cup final.
We got the 3 cup finals that year: the Southampton Cup, the League Cup, and the FAI. That was sickening. There was 2 decisions that went against us. Gavin Brennan scored to put us 2-0 up with 15 minutes to go, and the referee disallowed it. Should never have been disallowed. And then the free.
That should have been disallowed.
That should have been disallowed because he didn't blow the whistle. And I don't know how Joey and Doe did it, but if that was only one touch to flick it over a wall. And he did later apologise, but like as you said, it obviously 20-something thousand people there to win an FAI Cup, my family there, and people flew from England and all. That's me personally. For Drogheda to win it would have been huge. But European qualification. So the following year, Drogheda they didn't get relegated the following year. I think it was the year after. But like the following year, they fell off a cliff where we came in the league. But European qualifications worth a couple of 100,000. I think our budget the following year was 100 grand between 20 players. You know, playing budget. This is years ago when we're only coming out of a recession. It's not like, I know League of Ireland's doing well now and people are paying decent money, but like I think I was the captain the next year, maybe on 300 quid a week for like 350 a week, you know, as one of the highest paid players. So like this wasn't, if to then got add another extra couple of 100,000 to the playing budget, you're not getting relegated. You're not even coming near relegation zone, you know. You're probably going up and challenging for Europe again. So that's what one decision. Now I don't blame the referee. We were 1-0 up, like the game was still in our hands. We had 12 minutes left. We conceded 3 goals in 12 minutes. No matter what decision the referee made, that's our fault, you know. But yeah, it took me a good 6 months to get over that.
Yeah,
that was tough.
Because I think you were just starting to open up here as well at the time, weren't
I opened up the next day.
Yeah.
The next day, yeah. I think it was the 3rd or 4th of November. I opened up the next day here, yeah, I didn't come in that morning. Someone else took the morning slot. Yeah, I actually came in that evening. Yeah, that was tough to take. But yeah.
And then after well, you obviously went to Australia. How long? Like, talk to us about Australia. The difference between obviously playing here in Ireland and like you weren't playing in the A League as such, but like even like the professional leagues here are so much different to other countries. Like
no, Australia, the league I was in was very similar to the League of Ireland. The standard probably wasn't as good. It'd be lower League of Ireland, Premier Division, higher First Division. That was kind of the standard. But you were going over there, and Australia was just flush with cash. I basically sent a video over. I got a fella to do a YouTube video of me. I sent it over, and the club said, come over. They seen obviously the level I was playing at, come over and train with us. This is the type of contract we can offer you if you are who you say you are, you know. So you went over, trained for a couple of weeks. The northern beaches in Sydney, it's a place called Manly. It was beautiful. And they hooked me up with a job. Obviously you were getting paid, it was professional. But you only train 2-3 nights a week. And like, it's in 40-degree heat. They're just on the beach all day, go train. And where in Manly, like, it's not like Bondi. You go to Bondi and it's full of Irish. Manly is settled Australians. So like, I was the only one that wasn't Australian on the team, you know. And then the next year an English guy came, and there was a French fella came. Like, you might have one or two, whereas there was other teams in the league there was no Australians, you know. So it was kind of settled in that, like, I was the madman out on the Sunday night, like, and they were all going to work, like, you know. But they looked after me. I was well looked after. Like, you could show up to work whatever time you wanted if you won the game on the Sunday. Like, if you didn't really want to go in, you were looked after, you know. That, yeah, it was a great experience. Listen, it wasn't what you'd say really strict professional football. But for a life experience and to go over there and to be at a time when like Ireland was in the depths of it, you know. I was ringing up friends at home, I was ringing family, and like, the country was struggling at the time. There was no jobs in the country. Every construction worker was in Australia. Everyone had left. So it was nice to be out of that and to be enjoying myself over there, you know.
Well, it certainly sounded like it anyway.
Absolutely.
So then, after Australia, what kind of made you leave Australia? Because you sound like you enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was loving it, but I'd only 2 years on a visa. Obviously, because of being in England, I could never get a degree. I could never go to college. So without really a college degree, you can't really get sponsored in Australia unless you're a chippy or you're something. But again, I didn't have 4 or 5 years to go and do an apprenticeship on it. So I came home. I was happy to come home. I love it at home. I was always eventually going to come home. And I signed with Drogheda again. And I loved Drogheda. Like, I loved playing there. But that was the year I signed was the year we got to the 3 Cup finals, you know. So even then, like, we were playing in Europe. We played against Malmo. We had 3 Cup finals. But every single game was a big game because you've 3 Cup finals, yeah, but you've 3 quarterfinals. You have 3 semi-finals and 3. So all of a sudden, they're 9 huge to a club like Drogheda, who, like, we were one of the favourites to get relegated here before. They're huge games, you know. So then you've 2 European games. So all of a sudden, you've 11 massive games. You're travelling. Like, it was a brilliant, brilliant season. Although we didn't win any of the cup finals, there was always a buzz around it. There was never a dead mid-table game where there was nothing to play for, where you didn't want to go. I remember there was a 3-week spell over the 21 days. We were in for 19 of them. We were part-time. And on the 19th day, I think we were playing the UCD out at the bowl, and he said, listen lads, come in tomorrow night, we'll have a video analysis. No chance me coming in. Video analysis, you're joking me. Yeah. So I think he had such a strong pushback, we didn't have to do it in the end. But yeah, like, it was great to come home and then do that. And I played for Drogheda for a couple of years. I ended up doing my back, and I signed for Bray. I signed a 2-year deal at Bray and didn't even get to step on the pitch for them. I was that bad. I was in a wheelchair on holidays one time and had to come back, have back surgery. And to be honest, the business was taking off. We were getting busier and busier, and it was just too much commitment. So I ended up then, I signed for Mochtas. Last year, it was the first time playing in about 3 years. I stopped playing completely after my back for about 3 years. Went, signed for Mochtas, and Neil Fenn came in for me at Longford. So I sat down, had a chat with Fenny, and ended up signing for Longford midway through last year. So I went back, I spoke with Brian, I spoke with the lads at Mochtas. I said, listen, thanks a million, but I'm going to go to Longford in January. So this was probably November. And I signed with Fenny the Wednesday morning. That night I scored a hat-trick, the first hat-trick of my career. Yeah, first time I'd ever scored a hat-trick. I just signed with Longford. And anyway, the more and more I thought of it, and with business and with my back, I rang Fenny up and I said, listen, if you don't mind, just let's cancel that contract. I'm really enjoying my football here. My back, I wasn't sure whether I was going to be able to go back to that type of football. Like Brian and Mochtas would let me miss train on a Monday, just train the Wednesday, as long as you could play it the weekend. Whatever way, you're back, whatever way it takes. And it still niggles me now and then. So it wasn't a case where I didn't want to go back to a professional setup, train Monday, Wednesday, Friday game, Saturday, recovery Sunday. All of a sudden you're 5 times a week. Like I said to Fenny, and Fenny's sound, I said, listen, I'm not sure I can handle 5 days a week. And we just agreed to cut it and just ended up staying with Mochtas then from there.
And then I suppose as well, like, I mean, we spoke about the youth systems and Irish players that come and go. One Irish player in particular, and one from around here who you had an opportunity to work with over the summer, Ryan Cassidy, who came up through the youth system at St. Kevin's Boys, won an All-Ireland with Kevin's, and went over to Watford and is now, I think he's on loan with Accrington Stanley. You had an opportunity to work with him over the summer, and you could see the progression in him, that he just became fitter and fitter and fitter, and now he's gone off. I think he scored in his first game for Accrington, having signed a new deal with Watford.
Yeah. Again, Ryan was, he reminded me of myself a little bit in that, now I have to be honest, I hadn't seen Ryan play before he came in. Ryan's dad, Sean, put up that Ryan was looking to rent a bike, or it was something like that. And this was in the middle of lockdown. Listen, we shouldn't have had anyone in the gym. I used to come in myself and just train myself. And I just text Sean, I said, listen, someone like that, I'd never get. Roddy Collins did it for me when he owned a boxing gym up there when I came back from England. There was nowhere to go at the time. Ben Dunn and all weren't taking monthly membership. You can only sign up for a year, but I was only home for 6 weeks. There was no point in me paying it. But Roddy let me up and train in his. So I text Sean, I said, listen, if he wants to come up and keep fit, I'll give him a key. He can come use the gym anytime he wants, But every single day he came, every day. He was here for 3 months, I'd say. He was in the gym every day. He was out. He'd train in the gym for about an hour. He'd go out onto the pitch. He'd be running lengths for probably another half an hour. I was just looking at. Then I got talking to him obviously about. I'd obviously heard of Ryan. He was banging goals in for Watford's under 21s. Martinez loved him and was trying to bring him to Everton at one stage. So that's all I knew about him. Like, I didn't even know what type of player he was. He was always a small enough lad. Visually, he looked small, that you thought he was a poacher or whatever, but geez, he was a dog, He said to me, he said, no, I told him what I was like. I said, I wasn't very talented. I said, I'd work hard though. He said, no, I'm the same. I'm a worker. And then just looking at him here, it was evident. It was great to see. Like, I loved him around the place. There was a summer camp here, and Tony Jordan at Castleknock Celtic was running the summer camp. And I said to Tony, like, Ryan will go out. Went straight out, spoke to all the kids at the summer camp. They're all in awe looking at him. No airs and graces. Just have a chat with him, came back in, continued his training. And then them kids are keeping an eye on him and they're seeing him running all the time, I'll never forget when I was in at Man City and our coach, he had previously been the England underage coach, and he said every single day, Lampard, box to boxes. Every day. Constantly. And then you look at his career. That's all he did his whole career. But that was him at an underage level, And then you're looking at. That's what I always think. The young kids looking at a footballer, you have to set an example. If you're looking at a 20-something-year-old who's running up and down a pitch by himself, you're only 8, 9, 10. It's an example to you, to keep working. That it was great to have around the place, and it's good to see him. They've won 3 games already. I keep an eye on him now. He set up a goal there last week. He scored a couple of weeks before that, so it's good to see him doing well. it's a good level. It's League One as well. Accrington wouldn't be expected to do too well at League One.
It's that kind of experience of getting first team football where, okay, he might have signed a new deal at Watford, but you know, to maintain a constant level of I'm always in the plans, he can do that at Accrington, get his experience. He got called up to the under-21s for a small little camp there recently as well. So he's
and it's also say Watford or get back to the Premier Division. It's also the type of football you're going to be playing, because they're not going to be winning League One. They're probably going to be in the bottom half of League One, just like Watford when they're in the Premier League. So there's times you just need your striker to close fullbacks, to close centre-backs, to hound and just hold it up. There's not much point in them going to a team who are going winning the league all the time and playing that type of football. At the minute, at his age, the hard-working football and men's football, because these lads, an awful lot of them are on contracts where they might double their wage if they win a game. So I mean, they berate you if you're not working. Like that's it. They might only be on £500 a week and another 500 for a win, 200 for a goal. You know, so to them, winning is everything. It's not in the Premier League where they're on mega money, win, lose or draw. Like, you know, so it's a great experience. That type of level of football is a great experience.
And in your experience, like, would you say that League One, your League Ones, your League Twos, would that be real hardcore football?
Yeah, and it'd be. One thing I remember, people talk about the League of Ireland and how it's better than League One, League Two. Not a chance. The top level League of Ireland might be, probably is, but like Richie Towell's probably the best player to come out of League of Ireland in a long time. He's playing League Two football, you know, and he's the he was scoring 20, 30 goals in the League of Ireland. If he breaks 10 goals for Salford, he's doing well. They're a top team paying big money. Like, these are good footballers, but they're animals. They are so big. They train every day. Like, they literally, that's their whole life. But it's not just like, say, you might train every day here. These have been training every day since they're 14. You know, they're conditioned. Like, you might play a preseason game against them here, and you're coming up against even the fella you think isn't fit. He's an animal. Every one of them. So it's all very, very strong, very conditioned, very fit. There's nobody there who would have low fitness levels. None of them. They'd all be at a high level of fitness. That the skill is what might differentiate the difference in levels. Like, but they can all run for 90 minutes. That's for sure. Like you'll notice if you look at them, like their centre backs are still 6'4", nearly at every level over there. Do you know one centre back in Ireland 6'4"? All right. Like, I remember Clive Delaney at Derry when I was there. Like, that was a real standout in Ireland, but in England, every single centre back, you know, that then to try mark him from a corner, like, oh my God, they really have to mark this fella again every week. Whereas that was just Clive Delaney. That was just when you played Derry, you had to mark a fella that size. Yeah. But like, one of the best centre backs in Ireland, Gartho, say, Gartho's probably 6'1", like, you know, even Andy Boyle, brilliant footballer, 6 foot, like, you know, the top centre backs in this country. That's probably why an awful lot of them, because they're good enough on the ball, they're good enough spatial awareness at their job. Just when you go over to England, they're just so big. You need to win that header against a 6'3" striker, you know. And if you keep losing, all of a sudden, you're not playing centre back anymore, you know. That's the one big difference I noticed over there in the levels. They're all huge. They're huge. They're fast. They're conditioned, you know. There was no, sometimes when you were playing League of Ireland, you could come up against a team lower level, and at times it was also Drogheda. They just weren't fit. You could run through them. You couldn't do that against any of them teams, you know. They were all very fit. Like, Jack Byrne is ripping it up in Ireland. Yeah. Absolutely ripping it up. There's no Premier League clubs looking at him. Yeah. Like, and even if they are, they're thinking he's just a cheap boy that he might do well. And like, he's probably the best I've ever seen in Ireland, you know. But if Jack was doing that in the Championship, he's worth 20 million. Yeah. You know, like, do it in Ireland, will they pay 500 grand for him? Do it in the Championship, you're worth 20. Do it in League One, you're worth 5-6 million. So that's the difference with Ryan. Ryan, if he can go and do that in League One, he's suddenly a couple of million he's worth.
Because with Jack Byrne especially, I mean, like, obviously he's been in the Ireland squad. You know, hasn't got his game in this particular international window, and an awful lot of criticism of Stephen Kenny and the fact that when you look at the squad as a whole, okay, the season's only started across in England, and Jack's had a better run at constant football than some of them, but he is, whether they're Premier League footballers, Championship footballers, whatever, he is one of the top, most informed players in that squad, but yet he can't get in. And what seems to be the overall thought is that he's probably not going to get playing in that Ireland squad until he goes to England.
Yeah, and then you look at him and you think of the type of footballer he is, and even if he's in England, he seems a luxury player. He's don't get me wrong, I couldn't lace his boots. He's a magnificent footballer, but is he a Wes Houlihan who couldn't get into some Ireland teams? And Wes was a very good Premier League footballer. In Ireland, Irish managers and Irish style of football, they don't usually like number 10s, luxury players. Even though I know at Rovers, I remember Mick McCarthy saying he drops too deep to get the ball, but we seem to like a type of footballer that runs around, tackles him, just an easy pass, pass. I'd love to see him, like everyone, I would have loved to have seen him play. But to have any chance, he probably does need to be in England. And then even at that, he probably needs to be ripping it up in England. Like, Glenn Whelan can go to England and be just doing okay, and he'll get a game because of the type of footballer he is.
Yeah.
No disrespect to Glenn. Glenn's a magnificent footballer as well, but Jack will need to do more than that. A player of that ilk needs to do more than that. Like, you need to really be ripping up to force your way into an Ireland team.
And a cup and a league consecutively back to back. Probably it's probably not going to set in terms of a manager's eyes across in England. I mean, here, it seems outstanding that he won an FAI Cup last year, and the Shamrock Rovers are on. They are going to win the league this year. I'd take off my bows that they are going to win the league this year. But to a big Premier League manager, they might go, okay, but
like Premier League, they're not even looking at Ireland. A Premier League manager, probably not. A Championship manager is probably thinking, can I get a bargain buy? Can I get someone who might do well?
Not a Matt Doherty type that's going to earn Shamrock Rovers a couple of million in years to come.
Yeah, but even Matt Doherty there, like, they signed him for nothing. He was a young lad. He was a really young lad. Like, I played with Matt on the Foss course. He was a really young lad, and it was 60,000 or something they're paying for him. Like, to them, they're paying some lads double that a week. Like, so it was just a gamble of nothing. He had one good game against Aston Villa, I think it was. Whereas, I think Jack is on a free now at the end of the year. I think his contract is up.
Yeah, contract's up.
So I'd be very surprised if he didn't go to England then. But the only thing, Jack's not going over there. Like, Matt might have gone over there and you wouldn't know what wages he got, but you'd reckon Jack would be demanding a lot more in wages than what a Matt Doherty was at the time. So we'll see. I don't expect Jack to go over there and just take whatever anyone gives him. He's too good of a footballer, and he's probably earning too much here to do it. Like, I'm sure he's on nice enough here. But yeah, listen, you love seeing League of Ireland players go over and do well, lads you can relate to as well. Like the pass he made there for Grahamberg's goal a couple of weeks ago was unbelievable. From the middle of the park. Grahamberg's touch was nearly better than the pass, actually. But yeah, they're things you don't usually see, or I was never capable of in the League of Ireland. That, like, you would hope he can replicate that, and that's what I was hoping he'd get on for Ireland. But the second they went down to 10 men,
that was his chance.
You couldn't put a player like him down on it when you're down to 10 men.
And it's just like, I mean, given the mess that they have with COVID at the minute and 7 players unavailable, and he still can't get.
I know. I think his best chance was actually starting, if he was going to start. But a 0-0, even if they went 1-0 down, they could bring someone on like him to pick a lock. Like, I watched the Slovakia game, and it was crying out for a player like him. It seemed like it was really someone just in and around the box who would relax and make the pass, because they got up to the box so much. They played nice football. But then again, it's the worst Slovakia team in decades. They were missing half their team. We still couldn't beat them. Still couldn't score a goal. So yeah, the international setup, it's tough viewing at the minute, And I don't blame Stephen. I don't blame Stephen Kenny at all. We just need, I think, the next 2 or 3 years for the next batch to come up. We're in it seems like we're in a little spell here where we need that 2 or 3 years experience for our younger crew to come through. And we're starting to show, even our current underage setup, we're starting to show the fruit of the decisions we made years ago to actually make that under 13s, 15s, 17s league. Because it's looking good. What's coming through is looking good. So hopefully we'll have something good to watch.
Anyway, away from football, you talked about your brother and sister suffering with cystic fibrosis. You yourself and with Anatomic Fitness do an awful lot of work for cystic fibrosis, and like you got that newspaper cut out in that frame there. During lockdown, you jogging like pretty much round laps of the community.
Yeah.
Like, and you see the figure of €37,000.
Yeah.
That's a huge sum.
Yeah, it
them.
ended up being 50 grand we raised. So we've raised 300,000 now in the last 7 years for CF. Yeah, listen, I'm in the privileged position. I'm capable of running around the block. My brother and sister mightn't be. So that's the first time I ever made the back page of a paper for running laps around Riverwood.
You 2-page spread when you were playing for Drogheda before that cup final. But
yeah, in the middle, yeah. That's the first time I ever made the back page. Yeah, I should run around Riverwood more often. It just showed there was nothing, no sports to report on. I remember every reporter ringing me, "Jeez, Mick, we've nothing to put in the paper."
But as well, like, really, I mean, like, and given the time that it was, like, everybody was in lockdown, and you know there was all of this thing of you had to stay within 5 kilometers of your home and all that kind of nonsense. But you still had you'd people coming out in their CF tops, and they were coming out and they were trying to will you on. You got Bernard Brogan on board as well.
Yeah, Kieran Kilkenny, Bernard. Yeah, and to be fair, thanks to the lads, because Kieran would be a family friend of mine, and Bernard would come here, and Bernard's wife Kira would come here as well. I rang Kieran. I said, listen, I knew getting Kieran on board would build the hype a small bit, like, you know, but then I mentioned it to Bernard, and both of them straight away, no problem at all. And probably through having the Dublin lads, I got a phone call from the Mirror, I think was the first one we did, and they posted it up when we raised 10 grand that day. Like, things took off straight away when I posted up. I think we got a few thousand between lads I played with, lads and the people in the area, this, that and the other. But then the Daily Mirror put it up and we got 10 grand a day. Now all of a sudden, every day, like, we set this up on the Sunday, we ran it on Good Friday. So between the Sunday and the Friday, we raised 50,000. So it was nearly every day. Then you'd click on your GoFundMe link, and it was like another couple of thousand. But we were the first one to do it. All of a sudden, I think after people seeing that, there was more. I know Dean Rock ended up doing something similar. That we were probably lucky in that we were the first people to do it, to raise that type of money, like, you know. But it was great for the charity. It's a charity I'm closely linked with, obviously. It was great to be able to help, and there was kind of this one's CF Dublin West. It's not CF Ireland, so I'd have a little bit of a say in it as well. And it's dealing with kids. Like, there was a kid there who just kept getting infections, and they opened up the wall, and there was mold in the wall in the room, but it cost thousands to fix the mold in the wall. That was something we were able to do. Give them a €3,000 grant. They went in, took the mold out, and placed the wall, and all of a sudden the kid's not getting sick again. Like, that's a big outlay for a family. If they can't afford it, the kid just has to keep sleeping there, has to keep getting sick, like, you know. Or people at home that work from home, being able to get laptops, give grants for laptops, and just for local kids, like, you know. I'm not interested in trying to find a cure, and like, the type of money we raise isn't going to make any dig at something like that, but to actually impact the life of a young kid in the area, that's kind of what we were aiming for, like, you know.
And then with your own family's ties to it, like you were talking about the murder cocooning in lockdown and stuff, how did your family experience lockdown and ongoing pandemic with two high risk category?
Yeah, and still are experiencing it. Like, I'm still not allowed in my home house. None of us are. So talking about Christmas there and what we're going to do for Christmas, I'm probably going to have to shut this place down or get someone else to work. But the plan now for Christmas is to take a week off before, ring up the doctor, get a test, quarantine for the week, get a second test, and only after getting 2 negatives am I allowed in the home house. You know, So that's what we're all going to have to do in the house. So whether we have to ring up our bosses and say we're sick for the week or whatever has to happen, I think Christmas is too important. And our family are too important that we're going to have to quarantine for the week and get 2 negative tests. Ring up Hassan there, Dr. Hassan, and try get 2 tests to be able to get into the home house for Christmas. And once we're in the home house, we're not allowed to leave, you know, and just enjoy our family for 3-4 days before we leave that bubble and then come back to work or go to wherever we're going.
And like that kind of ties in with what we were talking about earlier in terms of mental health, and that the hoops that you'll have to jump through to see your own family.
Yeah, but listen, jump through them.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah,
I'll jump through it. Like Mum would be thinking, I don't care. I'll go. I'll get that swab up my nose. I'll sit in the room for a week. I'll get it again. I'll sit in the room. But I am here Christmas Day. Put me in for that dinner. And Santi better fucking come. I'm coming down I'm getting drunk with my dad on Christmas Eve. I'm coming down the stairs to Santi and I'm eating my Christmas dinner. Yeah. Whatever it takes, I'll do it.
No Christmas Eve in the Carpenter though this year.
No, unfortunately not. Yeah. We used to do a pub crawl, the Carpenter, the Lodge and my house, but I'll have to get the cans in, just me and Dad in the house. Listen, it's challenging for everyone, but it has to be done.
Yeah,
I'll do it anyway.
So a massive thank you to Mick for his time. He had been working from 5:30 the day we met him, and we kept him for over an hour for that chat, and it really was great to sit down with him, and we want to wish Mick all the very best and future success for Anatomic Fitness.
And that's all we have time for this week's show. Thanks for listening. To get in touch, you can tweet us at FTFPodIRE or email ftfpod@gmail.com. We'll be back at the same time next Wednesday evening. So from Dan and myself, thanks for listening.